Enjoy your stay. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. What's the news today? Have a drink, have your say. All opinions here today. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Enjoy your stay. Ready, GA, and men are here today. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Come and have your say.
Right, look, I'm sorry. I really am truly sorry. I'm sure there are 1,000,001 issues within Speedway that could be raised in my opening monologue today, but in all honesty, I can only think about one thing today. Can you guess what that is? Birmingham won. We actually won a match. What a difference a win makes. Went to bed with a smile on my face, woke up with a smile, and I have to say sorry to my fiancée for that. And we had mention in the press, on the television. But, you know, this is what sport can do for you and why it's important, why it's really important. So today is a good day, unless you come from Manchester. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern, sponsored by So-Called Studios. For all your rehearsal needs, call 0121 707 4152. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And good evening to our audience. All three, I don't know.
When you said the words Birmingham won, I was waiting for Webby to put a sound effect of him slumping over the controls or something. So, to be fair, but
Everybody came off as soon as she's been.
Okay, so I mean, everybody else is talking about last night's TV meeting, so I think it's a good place for us to start.
yeah,
First of all, it was a good meeting, wasn't it?
it was a very good meeting. I think that was probably the most pleasing thing about it. You know, the racing at Perry Bar's probably through circumstances with the way that the tracks had to be repaired because of the weather has not been great so far. But certainly last night we saw some really good racing, some good moves on the outside in particular,
And some good moves on the inside, so not just a one-line
Yeah,
track.
let's give Bellevue credit as well because they certainly played the part in the meeting.
Of course.
They were never out of it.
No.
Birmingham obviously had stages where they sort of got ahead, but not really far enough ahead to have been able to settle the meeting. And of course, then you're always thinking 13 and 15 heats, 13 and 15 are Birmingham going to be found out in the big heats again? And of course, 13 they were.
They were, yes.
And you sort of got the sort of feeling around the stadium of,
Oh dear! And then
it's going to happen again.
And then we got that 4-2. Zach Cook came out, and we got that 4-2. Beat his brother.
That's right.
And you thought, well, maybe.
The starting, the gating really was much better from Birmingham tonight. I think last night. I think all of the riders certainly contributed to it. Steve Worrell's sort of come and there's been a lot of sort of scope on him really because he hasn't been in great form so far. But he didn't have a great start, but got better as the meeting went on. Won his last race. I think it suits him as well being back at number two. I think that's really where he is in the team really, as opposed to being a heat leader.
Yeah, I think so. Have we got some things on the show box?
Yeah, we've got quite a few people to say later. Pete Clark, Barry Young, Dave Twine, Stephen Bedford, we've got Elliot Young, Andrew Garner, Dave Twine. Quite a few people on there. Elliot says, amazing win last night. Had a sore throat all day after all the excitement. Busy couple of days for us volunteers in getting everything ready for the meeting and on the night.
Yeah.
Wild.
I mean, a big shout out to all the people that helped get the track prepared yesterday, all the volunteers. There was what you won't know from the outside, and I don't even know whether I'm supposed to tell you, so I might get slapped hands for this, who knows. But there was a list provided, I believe, by Phil Morris of things that he wanted done at the track for that meeting.
Yeah.
And it was all done.
Yep.
And the track looked good, looked really nice on the TV when I staggered home at 12:30 last night and thought I've got to watch a little bit of it. So yeah, I mean, well done to all the guys there that played their part
I know
in
that. I know there was a few issues, obviously, with the covers on the dog track because there was a real strong wind blowing around.
Yes.
The barn, and quite a few times you could see the staff having to run out and put the
tyres back on.
Put the tyres back on the dog track. Just to say, we have got a guest coming on tonight in about 10 minutes' time. We've got Phil Lanning coming on, award-winning journalist, and of course the son of the late great Dave Lanning. So I'm sure I met Phil last night at Perry Bar, and he was really enthusiastic about what he saw, and so I'm sure he's going to be, he's got some opinions on Speedo today, and of course, it's going to be a chance for him to start to reminisce about some of his dad's great commentaries.
So stay tuned for that, and if you have any questions for him, then shove them up on the shout box, and we will. I told Sam Ermolenko last night that he needs to come on every week if that's the performance that we get from them. But so that was great. I'm sure we will come back to that.
Yeah, can we just to say thanks as well to everybody who's given us some great feedback on last week's show with Sam, because it was a really good show.
We can't take a lot of credit for that. I think that was down to Sam.
Yeah, it was surreal for me. Obviously, growing up watching Sam at Wolves, it was surreal for me to be sitting there interviewing him. But I mean, the way you were salivating, it was. Wouldn't go that far.
No, it wasn't called that. No. Okay. Yeah, thanks for the 3,000 odd live viewers we managed to accumulate as well. That was pretty decent.
That's not bad going, is it?
It was a good show. It was a good show.
So Pete Clark says, evening all. I bet Nigel Tolley hasn't stopped grinning yet.
He certainly looked very happy when I saw him.
I've never seen him smile before. I'm not sure I want to see it again. Anything else there that we want to check out? Okay, so put your questions up and your comments, and not just about Birmingham, please.
No, that's enough now.
We've got a few meetings coming up on Thursday, including Birmingham at Kings Lynn. That's going to be an interesting one, I think.
Birmingham are going to be going into that one on the high against a Kings Lynn team that I fancied to do well at the start of the season, but I haven't got.
And I didn't.
Yeah,
for once I might have something right. Who knows? Okay, so over the weekend there, of course, was a GP. We should say congrats to Chris Holder.
Jack Holder.
Yeah,
you got one thing, you got something wrong there.
Yeah, so. I'll be talking about Phil Crump later. Don't worry. A good win for him.
Yeah, a good win for the championship as well. I don't think we wanted a situation where Bartosz Mosley just rides off into the distance after the first round.
No.
Wasn't at his convincing best. Was he he had 3 heat wins, but did run a last as well, of course, in the meeting, and of course was last in the final. And really, I suppose special credit's got to go to Freddie Lindgren, because he was far from his best either. He didn't win a heat during the qualifying races, but somehow
he seemed to get into it as the meeting went on.
Muddled his way really into the semi-finals. But and good to see Jason Doyle back up there as well, competing, and in second place. But Jack Holder's been waiting for quite a while now for his first win. I don't think there's any doubt he would have won a Grand Prix last year had he not had his,
he was head and shoulders the best rider on the night, I think.
He was, yeah. He felt right from the off that he was going to have a big night. Kai Hülkenberg certainly impressed me as well. He scored 11 points.
Yes,
and a lot of things there. But as I say, in terms of the racing, one or two decent races, but it was track conditions I think were a little bit difficult, but I think the biggest, from British perspective, of course, Ty Wiffenden just 3 points on the night and 1 point overall.
He just didn't look at it. I mean, we've seen him in British Speedway the past few weeks, and he's really been on it.
Yeah,
but that was.
Very
lacklustre.
That was a surprise because he's had, as I say, he's had a good start to the season so far, and we were expecting a remotivated Ty Wiffenden this season. But really on Saturday night, I mean, he had 1 heat win, but 4 last places and just 1 point overall, so bottom of the standings.
It was a very un-Ty Wiffenden-like performance, I have to say, and Dan Bewley as well. You can say much the same.
Yeah, I think maybe feeling the effects a little bit of that yesterday. I mean, he said he was sort of hobbling.
He was
around
hobbling
in
the pits. I mean, you got to be fair. He wasn't. He was a bit second-hand. He had a car accident as well, I believe. So,
yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah, but Robert Lambert made a very good start, didn't he? Just dropping a point in his first 4 rides, but again,
he did look as if he was the one that could challenge Jack for the majority of the meeting, and then
He did his usual. He just did his usual. Just fell away at the end, didn't he? I've said before with Robert Lambert, I think he's a rider that needs to be racing in the UK, and I don't just mean coming back here for a few matches in the playoffs.
What you mean is he needs to come and ride for Birmingham. Okay, I get you.
I didn't say. I never. The words Birmingham never passed my lips. So. And I don't think he'll be signing for Ipswich either, given what he said about the track there last year. But,
okay, right. Well, I mean, Kings Lynn was probably the favourite place for him to go to.
Well, I mean, obviously that was where he was before. So,
okay, so we've got a few more comments on there, and then I think we'll see about getting Phil on. Let's go through some of the comments.
Well, is the age-old question we get at least 23 times a year. Evening, gentlefolk. What needs to happen to improve and develop Speedway in this country further? Red Fen Tiger.
I mean, I've got to say that I think that Phil Morris and what he's doing, I don't necessarily agree with everything that he does, but it all seems to be going the right direction. I think it's made a big difference. I mean, the television coverage is better. I mean, Birmingham got... you mentioned that Birmingham were on the BBC. Chris has stopped listening to him.
Sorry,
he's working. He can't do two things at once.
Busy.
So, I think more of the same in that respect. We've got the GP riders coming back.
Yeah.
It's press coverage and television coverage, isn't it?
We just hope that some of it starts to filter down into the other two leagues as well. There's been a lot of bad publicity really about the championship, and unfortunately, as I say, the National League now is a pale shadow of what it was 5-6 years ago. Hopefully those two leagues, because at the end of the day, the National League has helped to bring through some really, really good riders that are now sort of established in the top league, aren't they, as British riders in their teams. Not necessarily as top riders, but good, solid, performing riders in the top two tiers.
I've got a few more. Elliot Hunt is going to Kings Lynn, and points out that Zach Cook moves to number 3, and
Backlav Manager will be at reserve.
Might do his confidence the world of good.
Well, he's not. Well, at the end of the day, I mean, he's getting a bit of flack, to be fair, but he's not a number 1 at the end of the day.
No, he should never be.
He's riding in a position of the team that he shouldn't really be riding in, unfortunately.
But he's had some wins.
Yeah.
For riding from that number 1 position, so it's certainly going to be an easier situation for him riding at reserve. Possibly improves the team. I don't know. We will find out. Cookie signs for Oxford to replace Kerr. I think that's not a bad move for them. Brian Johnson is going to Arlington on Thursday night with 2 new supporters. Fingers crossed up the Tigers. Sheffield have started pretty well.
They have started well. They finally managed to get a home meeting as well, which has been good. So.
Peter Clark says the standard of TV presentation has improved because of Phil Morris. Comments,
so.
Yeah,
I think so. I mean, obviously he's very media savvy, isn't he? And, he's one thing about him is you see a lot of things that he gets involved with, and he always does things to the best of his ability at the end of the day.
We've got a comment up on YouTube as well. Yes, we are on YouTube, folks.
I know, we've remembered as well.
Yeah. I mean, just to be sort of blowing our own trumpet sort of thing, if you watch us on YouTube, we've got more chance of earning something from this. So,
we only need another 920 people.
Yeah.
And then, we might earn
exactly. Yeah. Robert Hacker, what I can't understand is how these Grand Prix top riders getting beat easy in British League by lesser riders. Are they trying? Okay, possibly we need more elucidation on that. I mean, Dan Bewley is get beat by everybody at the moment, it seems, if that's what you're sort of... I'm not entirely sure what you're alluding to there.
I think we'll let Webby answer the question at the bottom from David Albrighton.
Yeah.
Our Brummie's going to ask the question, if they can build a track with the new Blues ground, be worth a risk.
It's not going to happen, sorry.
Well, there's your answer.
You've already said that, haven't you? I don't think they're interested in motorsport from reading between the very big lines.
No chance at all.
So, unfortunately, because it was a nice place to go back to. It's in the centre of town, virtually. So, Yeah.
Yeah, it's got. I mean, admittedly, the place got a lot of negative publicity when Birmingham were there before.
It was a great shaped track.
Yeah.
It's just the stock car ruined it for us.
Yeah.
But anyway, are you going to...
Yeah, we're going to obviously get Phil on shortly, so we'll be...
right. Chris is off to do that, leaving us to fend for ourselves. Again. So, yeah, I mean, let's just go back to the GPs a little moment. Obviously, it was a plus for Jack Holder. Got his name right this time.
Yeah, well done.
It was Robert Lambert had a great start and then did his usual.
Yeah.
What's going on with Dan Bewley and what's going on with Ty Woffington? Ty Woffington in particular, given that he's had such a great start to the season.
It just felt like a real... Right from the earth. I mean, he didn't look quick either, did he? That was the thing, so...
I think I do believe... no, Chris is not talking to us.
He's just giving you the thumbs up, so...
Oh, okay. So, we're just hooking up now. Are we ready?
You can give it a go.
Yep. So, hopefully on the line we have Mr. Phil Lanning. Are you there, Phil? Can't hear you in the cans, unfortunately. Hold on.
Hang on, we'll just get
Yeah.
this.
Sack the producer. So.
Yeah, again.
Hang on.
Unfortunately, the problem with that is this is your house.
That's very true, yeah.
That's it.
There we go.
Hello
That's better,
there,
Phil.
Phil. How you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. We got there in the end.
Well,
stuff, yeah.
A bit like the Brummies.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not a bad place to start. You was there last night. I presume you had your camera in hand.
Not me. My son was the photographer.
Of course, yeah.
I'm just the one who feeds him and drives him mainly. But no. He supplies the pictures and I sort of syndicate them out to everybody. So that's and write the stories. But no, it was good. Really thoroughly enjoyable night. Really. So I think I spoke to a few people before, and everyone was sort of hoping for Birmingham to finally get a result, and it sort of couldn't have written the script better. Really, last seat decider, bit of controversy, Birmingham win. Everyone went home happy, apart from obviously the Bellevue.
Of course, yeah. But I'm sure they'll get their own back on Monday.
I think when you were talking to me before, Phil, you did actually go for a 2-point home win, didn't you?
I said, my son and I were talking about on the way down. I just felt Birmingham would be really, really wanting it badly, and I sensed that there seems to be a growing sense of momentum from afar. And and listen, they rode great, and I thought I think they just showed a little bit more at certain bits of determination in certain heats, and got the just reward. And it was, but again, I believe if I've always been a firm believer that the best result in Speedway is a home 2-point win. In the old days, it was 40-38 was the ideal result, because you want home teams to win, and last seat deciders. I think that keeps everyone going home happy, really.
Absolutely, yeah. But, well, let's sort of have a little bit of a look at yourself, Phil. Obviously, most people know you, of course, because of your legendary father, of course, was for many people the voice of Speedway for the older generation. But for yourself, 5 times award-winning journalist, has worked for the Sun newspaper for 26 years, and you include the likes of Ty Woofington, Jason Crump and MLC enough in people that you've worked with, so you've done pretty well for yourself. Yeah,
it's been a bit of a smorgasbord down the years. I've been here, there, and everywhere, but it's been eventful, and I've been very fortunate to work for obviously a paper that polarises opinion, obviously, but from my point of view, I was lucky to get in there, I suppose, and in the early 90s, and when papers were really, really flying at that point, and I've learned so much over that period of time working for paper that at the sharpest end of journalism, but all through that period of time, Speedway's in my blood. I mean, my father, as you mentioned, he went to Poole, the first meeting at Poole in 1948, queued for 6 hours to get in. He told us, and and the first race was when Reg Craven was killed on the first corner. So
wow,
right. Okay.
So that was his introduction to Speedway, and it to be quite fair, from that moment on, the Lanning family has always had a connection with the sport, and we've always worked in it in one way or another, right the way through from my father, right, as everyone pretty knows, he's from the 70s and 80s, and just a short period of time at Sky in the 90s as a commentator, and then and he was a journalist for the Sun as well for Speedway and darts, and then obviously my brother, who was that was my really spending time with Russell in the mid 80s was probably my favourite time of all. I think that was my formative years, and Eastbourne and latterly Wimbledon. They were terrific years, and my favourite years were at Eastbourne, I think, in the sport, in the old National League, what was the second tier still. And then again, I worked for Speedway Star then. That was my second job. I worked for Speedway Star for 3 or 4 years. We started Speedway Now magazine with absolute magnificent timing. Within a couple of weeks that Wimbledon and Hackney closed when we opened the magazine, so we thought the sport was on its last legs then, so we sort of felt that it was the best decision to shut that down. And then I went to the Sun soon after. I had a short stint at Speedway Mail, and I then went to the Sun. I applied for a job at the Sun, and we went there, and I was there. I've literally worked for the Sun ever since the end of '92. It was actually the week after. It was the week after Gary Havelock won the world title, which was an incredible week for me, because obviously for him to win it, I was his manager at the time, and I managed him pretty much throughout his career, and I've been from that moment on. I was at the Sun. I still am. I was staff at the Sun until 2014, and then I'm freelance for the Sun now. And but no, so it's been and I worked with Jason. Jason and Gary are still very, very close friends of mine, and we've had some great times. We've had some hard times. We've had been fortunate to have some absolutely wonderful times, and there's no better feeling than seeing those guys winning world championships. So it's been terrific. It's been but Speedway has been the thread, and now obviously there's a third generation in. My son Taylor is a photographer for Warner Brothers and SGB and BSN, so he's doing that as well. So it's likely to go on and on and on for as long as Speedway's around, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's just, I think Speedway's a bit like a hump on your back. Once you've got it, you can't get rid of it. It's there, isn't it? So,
absolutely.
But in that being unfair, I mean, it's something that's been. We've had some, as a family, we've had some down the years, some wonderful times. I mean, the times at Eastbourne winning leagues, and when my dad was won the league at Reading in 1980 was another very, very special year. And my brother doing the double-double at Eastbourne in 80. He won the Cup 3 times, 85, 86, 87, and won the league. They were, as I said before, they were great times. So it's been good. It's been. Ask me when I've driven somewhere 3 or 4 hours for rain off, and wondered how much I love the sport. But we've all been there, haven't we? Yeah, we've all done that. Yeah. So, but no, it's been great. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the '92 World Final with Gary Havelock's win, Phil, because obviously we had Sam Ermolenko on last week, I should say, and obviously Sam won it the year after. But he was obviously, he's talked on the show last week, but he felt that the '92 championship got away from him because obviously the rain, the fact that it rained just before his first race, which sort of affected him psychologically. But I mean, that was I think 1980, of course, had been Michael Lee's championship, and we hadn't had a championship winner in this country since. But Javi had a really, really good season throughout 1992, and on a wet track, he seemed to just thrive on it, didn't he?
He did. There was a curious year, '92, a very, very curious year, and I started working with Gary the previous year, and he was. It was just after his British champion in '91. And he'd come back he'd had all the shenanigans with his bands and whatever, and he'd been right royally stitched up by the BSPA at that stage, with legally unsound verdicts, put it that way. And he was in his PR was in a bit of disarray. He'd been made a scapegoat and made an example of for his band and whatever. And I got spoken to him a couple of times, but we didn't actually get on that well, strangely enough.
Okay.
Because I'd grown up with Martin Dugard. It was a bit of rivalry between Martin and Gary in the mid '80s when they both started out together, and I was very much considered in the Eastbourne camp, and it was it was like a north-south divide thing, and we'd met a couple of times, and he was quite begrudging about me for a couple of reasons, and then we had a chat one day, a couple of days after this. I did an interview with him after he was British champion, and he said, I really need help, because I said everywhere I turn, I just run into chaos. And he said, I really need someone just to sort of, keep me out of trouble and whatever. And from a PR point of view, not from a human point of view. But that moment on, it was this curious time, because obviously he went out of the overseas final in '91, which was hugely disappointing. But '92, but it was everything that happened in '92. It was almost like it was a Hollywood script. It was everything that happened all the way along, and it was almost like, when we talk about teams in football who've got their name on the trophy or whatever, right from the off in '92, that felt like he was going to win the world title. And it sounds daft when I talk about it now, and it sounds daft because he was, well, obviously, because he's won it. But I did a big interview. We did a big thing in GQ magazine in 1993 and explained it all. And it was right the way through. There was he crashed in Poland just before the Commonwealth final, for instance, and basically broke his wrist. And he had to go to the Commonwealth final like a week later, and he was on about seeing a faith healer, and it was someone who Alan Ham knew, who was the promoter at Bradford at the time, and I just thought that was all sort of mumbo jumbo, and we went, and honestly, I watched this guy, and Gary's eyes were popping out of his head like golf balls, and I don't believe I've got movement in this. And when you just go, what the heck is going on here? This is bizarre. And then there was a plan. Obviously got to the World Final. Per had beaten him from the back at Bradford in the runoff and the Intercontinental Final. And Per was the best rider in the world. Gary was there or there, but Gary is one of the top three. But and obviously Hans and I think Yano had gone out through injury. Hans had gone out in one of the rounds a week, but Yano had got injured. So Gary was in the 1 or 2, 3 top riders in the world. But we came up with this harebrained plan. So literally, that he had his long hair in a ponytail, and there was a plan to for him to have put them in beads and dreadlocks, and then for him to walk out with these fluorescent yellow Kevlars, which at the time had never been done before. No one had worn anything sort of fluorescent in those days, and he had the deal with Scott Leathers, and we came up with. But we had the plan was that he only did it. He only walked out. He only looked like that when he came out for the actual meeting, so that he would have this shock factor. And that's what he did. And he walked across, and he claims this day that everyone was like just looking at him like he was some sort of lunatic. And so there was a lot of whether that had any effect on anyone else, or probably had an effect on Gary. I think it gave Gary this element of swagger. And which is very much part of his thing, and he had Gate 4 in his opening ride, and we did have the rain, and he came from Gate 4. Per ends up last in that race. They'd drawn each other in the first race. That Heat 2 was always going to be massive, and he won it. And again, then that night, of course, he was third out the start in his second ride. Jimmy Nielsen put Zdenek Cesar up against the fence, come out the second pin. The bike bounced back, hit Gary on his right leg, basically pulled all the ligament and muscle off the calf of his right leg.
Ouch.
And Gary was in screaming agony. He looked like he was finished in the meeting. And they was patching it up. They were trying to get him back with Brian Lana and Scott Trigg were trying to get him back to the pits. And the heavens opened. And for 75 minutes, the meeting was delayed, and that gave him enough time to strap his leg up, get himself into some sort of, that he was good enough to ride, and he came second to Drambic in the rerun, but won his last 3. And and every single ride he beat someone he had to beat to get to knock them out of the championship as they were going along. It was and Gary will say at the end, it was like a dream. It was like there was lots of different elements to it which made it feel like it was a Hollywood movie. And there's little things people have told me since. We didn't realise he had a yin and yang back spoiler design on his bike. He was drawn at number 8, which is the lucky number in Chinese mythology and things. And so all these little things, it feels like it was written in the stars. And it was a special year, and he had just one of those years where it all went right, and he never reached that pinnacle again. We got close a couple of times. I think he had his moments, but I think the best he was ever after that was in 1996, and that's when sadly he broke his back.
Mm-hmm.
And but no, so it was. 1992 has always got a very, very special feeling to me because of that, because it was such a special year, and to have a British world champion again, having waited 12 years, was terrific. And sadly, Speedway didn't really use Gary as well as it could have, because he was great publicity. He was good for the sport, and he's always willing to give out a controversial quote, which us journalists like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's sort of a continuing story with the British Speedway, that you could say the same thing didn't happen when Ty Woffenden became world champion, that he wasn't used properly.
Yeah, well, I would agree. I would agree that we've been blessed with the greatest British rider of all time and the most marketable, certainly British rider, maybe all-time rider of all time, because the most marketable rider up until Ty Woffenden or Gary maybe before that was Bruce Penhall, but to have someone who can talk the talk and walk the walk, who was British, and not only that, and actually win 3 and be as good as he was, and not only that, to look very cool and to he polarizes opinion, Ty, but we like sportsmen who do that. He's going to, he's either, you do love him or hate him, and but we've had this great asset for. And not only that, he transcends Speedway. He takes Speedway beyond. He takes it into sort of motocross and into other things because he looks the part. He looks, whether I like tattoos or not, whether I'd like my children to have tattoos I wouldn't. But nonetheless, he looks cool. He's very out there, and he would, just as much as David Beckham might grace the front cover of GQ magazine, Ty Woffenden wouldn't look out of place in the front of GQ magazine. And it's just a shame that we haven't. This is a guy who should be there, who should have been on Sports Personalities of the Year. He should have been on these things. He should have been saying things which in the mainstream media rather than just tucked away in Speedway Star. So that Speedway is so far off the radar in that sense. It's such a shame that it's not. It'd be great if we have a situation and where Speedway improves and we can find another one like Ty. But and he has been wasted. And that's a long answer to a short question.
Sure.
He's been dreadfully wasted.
So, sort of going along that same lines. Do you think that what now Phil Morris is doing within the Speedway world, that is a step forward? Is this the right way to go?
Well, Phil Morris definitely is the right way to go. We spoke briefly about it last night at Birmingham, that Speedway has got to realise where it stands in the spectrum of broadcasting and mainstream media, and it's a very, very, very small drop in the ocean, Speedway, compared to what we're up against now. And Speedway's got a long way to go. It is pretty much at ground zero now, and it's not going to. And there's been a lot of chat over the years. I've heard it because I'm involved heavily as a journalist in darts, and everyone's always said, "Oh, we need a Barry Hearn, we need an Eddie Hearn," but someone of that stature is never going to get involved in Speedway. Never in a million years. They need. Speedway so far down the ladder now, and it sounds awful. It sounds like I'm being really derogatory. I'm just being honest and frank about it, and how it's perceived from the outside. I see how it's perceived from sports editors and national papers, and so it's got a long way to go, and it's not going to attract one of these big promoters. So it's got to come from within. We've got to have someone who loves the sport, is willing to try and take it outside and have the nous to take it outside and see what it looks like from the outside looking in. And that's where Phil Morris, Speedway, is very lucky to have, because he has got the determination, he has got the personality and the nous to take it forward. It's a long program. There's no doubt about it. This isn't a 1, 2, 3 year fix. This is a long-term fix. And but Phil Morris can take it there. I firmly believe in it. I mean, I've seen so many people come and go in Speedway down the years who've promised this, that, and everything. We've seen people who promised the world that they're going to do this and they're going to plough millions in, and we've heard it all, and it's been codswallop all the way along. Phil is grounded. He knows the task. He knows what is. He knows at the moment he's got to use smoke and mirrors to make things look better than they do until they get the financial backing. And the only other two people who I believe can take the sport forward are Rob Painter and Vicky Blackwell with Phil as well. What they've done with Great Britain is beyond fantastic.
Yeah, of course.
And that is the blueprint on a smaller scale. What British Speedway needs to do, it needs to get its branding right, it needs to get its marketing right, it needs to start from these little small pockets of how to get it needs to look polished to the outside world. That's the first job, and so that it's because there is so much. I mean, we would need a very, very long time to discuss all the elements, but I think Speedway people basically know what needs to be done, but it's how I go about it. And but we have the right person doing it now, so we're in a better position now than we have been in for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, I've banged on for ages that one of the problems with Speedway has always been that it's run by the people that run the clubs. So they have their own vested interests in where they are, and they're always going to be coloured by that. So you need that one person that says, well, hold on, this is what Speedway needs, not what that club needs or what that club needs. And I think that's what we've got with Phil.
100%. 100%. And, I can only use, and I've used this analogy quite a lot over the past few years, because it's an analogy I can use because I know it so well, is because darts and Speedway were at the same level probably before the turn of the century. And so, they commanded the same amount of respect in the media and broadcasting and whatever. And now look at darts, it's gone through the roof.
Course, yeah.
And it's got massive money in it, it's massive viewing figures. It's the second biggest watched sport in the UK, which not a lot of people know that it's only behind football, and only the perceived top four clubs in football get better TV ratings on Sky or TNT than darts.
Right.
And it's so. And the reason why that is because it is run by someone who's independent, who took the sport and said, this is what it needs to look like. Now, he told so the players were effectively, the dart players would effectively be the clubs, like when they broke away in darts with Phil Taylor and Jockey Wilson, Eric Bristow and these guys or whatever, they would effectively be your Bellevue, Sheffield, Kings Lynn. But Barry Hearn, as the boss, said, right, whether you like it or not, this is what I'm going to make the sport look like. It's going to have razzmatazz, it's going to have loud music, it's going to have walk-ons, it's got nicknames, it's going to be wham bam, it's going to be noisy, it's going to be this great night out for punters to go to. That's what. Now, if you don't like it, well, tough. Go and do something else with your life. He said, but this is how I'm going to do it. But when you do it, and when it looks good, you're going to make a lot of money. So if you play the game, literally, and not just the game as in play the game with the market, then that's what Speedway needs, and it needs to start with someone like Phil saying, as you totally right, saying that it needs an independent voice. Say, this is what the sport needs to look like. Now, I don't care whether Sheffield, Bellevue, or Kingston win the league. It's completely immaterial who wins and loses at the moment. It's about how the sport looks, and there is a long way to go, because I still think that the perhaps the most worrying aspect of Speedway at the moment for me in the UK is its presentation, and I think the way we mentioned it last night, was that the when I grew up in the 80s, and when I was coming through Speedway in the early 80s, that was its halcyon days, as we all regard them now, with the biggest characters and the best crowds and whatever at the time, and obviously live on World of Sport, which was then being watched by 13 million people every Saturday. Now, Speedway, actually, the product, 4 blokes going round an oval track, hasn't changed. I think the racing's probably better now than it was.
Mm-hmm. I
would agree with that. Yeah.
But the one thing that has Speedway now just hasn't moved on. It's still presenting Speedway as it did in 1980, 1981, whatever, or even 1978. It still looks the same, and the stadiums still look the same. And so, it's hard to control an outdoor arena, but nonetheless, that's where Speedway's lack. It's not the product. The product still on its day can still be. We can watch Grand Prix, and we might get to Warsaw in a couple of weeks, and could be mind-blowingly good. So the actual product's right, but it's everything around it that's the problem. It's the presentation. It's we've just. And again, I'm not saying anything that's rocket science here. I think everybody knows this. But the worrying thing is it's not discussed. That we go to an AGM every year, and we hear about points limits and rising stars, but no one ever says, or never says, how do we present the sport? How do we get, what's this going to look like to a younger generation? Is my son, my youngest son's 15. He can play brilliant graphics on a video game with, for West Ham and on these things and play it, or he can do for F1, almost driving around the tracks. What's he going to be? You've got to drag him out of that comfort zone to go to, my local track is Glasgow, where he's going to go there and they're going to play Tiger Feet in the freezing cold. And I know it sounds awful, but that's the reality of it, and that's what's happening at most places. We haven't moved with the times in presenting the sport. We had a period of time when Cardiff, we went there, and they did it really well. That they presented it really well. That seems to slip now. They don't seem to make a big effort at Cardiff about how they do
with that, Phil. Yeah,
yeah. So that's where Speedway, and when the reason I've gone on to that is that when Phil Morris talks about where he's taken us, that's one of the areas, that perception of the look and how it's perceived, and that's where darts. So if you look at darts in the mid 80s and 90s, was fat blokes throwing darts with pints on stage in smoky arenas. Now look at it. It's young athletic blokes making millions of pounds with this nightclub atmosphere, and everyone's going wild. It's massive. It's loud music. Everyone's got jazzy names, and it's got all walk-ons, music association with it. That's where Speedway's been left behind. That is the great analogy. So we'll look at that, and that's why we're at with Speedway. That's where we're at right now. And so until someone actually gets a grip and says we've got to present it and have loud music and and try and cater for the younger generation, you can't have dead air at Speedway. You can't have
that. Is,
yeah, we've said that many times,
time and time again. Yeah.
I think we've discussed this before, Phil. To be fair, on here, and we've often said that Speedway sort of portrays itself as a family sport, which is great, but should it really be moving towards portraying itself as an extreme sport as opposed to a family sport?
I happen to think that the two words family sport are the greatest ball and chain around Speedway's ankle. And I think, and this is, I know I've raised controversy in Speedway Star about this because obviously Ty swore during the
yes, I was going to ask you about that.
Press day. I know that Mr. Buck from Briley Hill got stuck into me in Speedway Star, but that's part of. I mean, to be honest, that's quite a good thing. If something's creating chat and controversy, I'm all for that. But this is where Speedway has to make its mind up. I think it has to. What is Speedway? And this comes down to how it's presented, how it's marketed, how it looks. What is Speedway? Do we want it to be a family sport, or do we want it to be, which I don't think it's going to progress any more than it's going, because it's not a family sport. It's not really at the moment attractive to young people. So what do we want it to be? And it's interesting you use the expression extreme sport, because funny enough, it's not really crossed my mind that it could be marketed as that, because I think that's straight away, that's more exciting.
Yeah.
But that's what it's got to decide. We all, and I can't quite fathom Speedway fans. I love Speedway fans to bits, obviously, and and I am one. So I moan about the same thing. Everybody as rain-offs. I moan about meetings being
really sorry, Phil. We've just lost you for a moment.
Sorry,
yeah.
Can you hear me still?
That's it. Got you now. That's great. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm just at the end of the day, I'm a Speedway fan like anyone else. I moan about the same things. I moan about rain-offs. I moan about meetings. I hate with the utmost passion meetings being called off after 10 heats with the result standing, and everyone just goes home, and fans have lost a third of their viewing. So there's things like but I'm a Speedway fan, but I also don't understand Speedway fans what they want from Speedway, and do we want this sort of really watered down, squeaky clean stats, or filling in programs and just with people not saying boo to goose, and sort of everyone being squeaky clean. And because if that's what is going to happen, and that's what people want, it's going to go. It's not going to survive.
No.
Not in this day and age.
Didn't used to be like that.
Well, no, it didn't. And the thing is, I don't quite understand why that's suddenly become the norm. I don't know when and I'm not going back to when I grew up and the short corner and all that, but it never was like that. It was always punch-ups and people slamming the phone down on the centre green. It was all a bit pantomime.
I remember one rider, I think it was Gary Middleton, turning up on the centre green with a gun. I'm not saying that's a good idea, but yeah.
We'll stick to water pistols.
Yeah.
But that was. I might be my viewing of that might be a bit skewed because I grew up going to Eastbourne where there was a punch up every week, which but that was part of the norm. I don't know why Speedway's become because there's so many. There is a sea of hypocrisy with Speedway, because we went through a period of time where we had Thomas Gollob and then Nicky Pedersen with the villains on TV on the Grand Prix. They were fantastic because we watched them because they, in the most blandest Grand Prix, they would do something daft and it would cause a ruck. And then we'd have this situation where it was, we don't want to see this. We don't want to see this. And bless him, Nigel would say as well, that's not good. We don't want to watch it. We don't want to see it. Well, we do want to see that, actually.
It is actually,
unfortunately, yeah.
And I said to Nigel myself, I said, well, we should stop saying that because I do what we, and I said, I speak for everybody that we do want to see it. And at the same token, we've got a situation where people don't want to see riders being outlandish or controversial or whatever. And obviously swearing is always going to be a controversial subject, and it's not necessary, and there's times and places. I get all that, but at the same time, so we don't want that. There's lots of people, we don't want this and we don't want that, and but at the same time, we're happy to watch these people crash into fences, break legs, put their necks on the line. I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute, it's really sort of X-rated in one sense, and we're all happy with that, and we love the danger, really. And at the same time, we don't want it to be controversial. We don't want them to have a go at each other. And that not only the public I'm talking about, I'm also talking about the Speedway Control Board. I think, and so it's not just so. And you can't say things. So what is it? I'll go back to that expression. It's just a sea of hypocrisy, and you just go, well, I don't know what the sport wants itself to be, and what do people want it to be. All I do know, and I know this for a fact, the only way it's going to make any impact on the mainstream media from a broadcasting sense, and from a, not just written media, because the written media is obviously on its knees, but it's even on social media, there has to be an element of controversy. There has to be an element of, there needs to be a bit of needle, and
I think
And
that's a good word, actually. Needle. I think needle is a good. I remember. You're probably going to guess what I'm going to talk about. One of the most talked about matches and the most noise I've heard at Birmingham for a very, very long time was when Redcar came to visit us, and they complained about our track, and they tried to get it rained off, and they was walking around and looking at holes that weren't there, and all this sort of thing, and the noise that came from the crowd that night because of that needle, some of the shouting at some. Now I don't think you should be shouting at riders necessarily, but it's heroes and villains, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
It is.
Yeah, it was a great night. We lost, unfortunately, but
well, there's always a sting in the tail. But you're right, though. But again, it's not rocket science. If you look back now, and if you say to anyone now, well, you look back at the big meetings you remember on television, or people will, oh crikey, I'll talk about the Nichols and Saifutnov fight at Cardiff. We'll talk about Pennell and Carter. We're talking.
Yes.
Pennell and Carter was like 42 years ago, but here we are
still talking about
it. In late April 2024. That's the. And I always use the analogy as well that, and when I'm talking to promoters or riders about it, and the promoters know what I'm about. I mean, they know, and I think there's a certain amount of sort of, I irk quite a few people by it. They know that I'm just constantly on the search for, and if there's anything controversial happens, they know that it's going to be, I'm going to seize on it. And but again, I keep saying that for all of my thoughts, if I do follow a story like that, the story does end up giving the sport a lot of publicity. Whether you think that's bad or good or whatever everyone's opinion is, it's still publicity. And again, that's not just my opinion. The opinion is fact, because the fact is that if you go onto YouTube and you say, well, the Chris Harris race, for instance, at Cardiff in 2007, which was, a dramatic race, and he won the title. Not a race. Funny enough, I don't regard it as a great race. I think it was a dramatic race, but not a race for a connoisseur. But it was a dramatic race. He won the British Grand Prix. That's got about sort of 600,000 views on YouTube. The Saifutnov and Nichols fight's got 4.3 million views.
Right.
Again, last year, the biggest stories that ended up in the national newspapers, in fact, pretty much the only stories that made real impact, was the Ben Battle and Craig Cook fight at Glasgow and the Palm Toft and Louis Kerr fight at Sheffield. They were the only two stories. But apart from Lee Complin's story about the fact that he almost died in a car crash, which we did at the start of the year, that was the only stories that made a massive impact. So it's not me just spouting nonsense, which I'm quite good at as well, by the way. But it is fact that they are the stickiest stories. They're the things that people look at. And again, the fact that we still look back on Pennell and Carter. We still look back fondly on the controversy between Carter and the Americans. That went on for 2 or 3 years. And crikey, did that garner some newspaper headlines.
Yes. And so, television interviews and everything. Yeah.
And Michael Lee was a controversial character in that. The World of Sport would send a crew out to his house in Mills Norwood on a Saturday morning to speak to him live, but controversy does work. And I tell you what, I do. Phil Morris and people like that, they do know that.
Right.
They're not. He does know, and he knows what makes it tick. And he last year he was, even though he sort of gives me a wry smile, he knows what I'm about with those stories. He knows those stories do the sport good. But to me, overall, as a picture, the sport's got a long way to go, hasn't it, to get to where it wants to be.
Absolutely.
Go on.
Phil, so I'm really sorry, mate.
There's so many more directions we could take this, Phil, but we're just conscious, obviously, that
sort
of
of
time is
against
us.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I just want to leave you with this one thing, actually, Phil. We've had we have our shout box with people putting their comments, and we haven't been able to ask you any of their questions, unfortunately, because it's been flowing really well. But Ben Clifton has said, "Best guest ever. Can Phil come back every week, please?"
There you go.
So,
Well, if that's what spouting nonsense is all about, then obviously. So I'll put on that'll be on my tombstone. He spouted nonsense. Yeah, that was it. But I'll come on any time you want.
Well, that's great. You will definitely get another invite or two. Or who knows?
Well, listen, Chris, keep up the great.
Great
Keep up the great work.
Yeah, great for you. As your dad would have said, it's great for you to come on and play to the gallery.
Yes. Oh, yes. I remember that fondly. Thank you very much.
You are more than welcome.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Phil.
Cheers, Phil.
Okay, speak to you soon, mate.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Well, there's a man that's passionate about the sport.
Absolutely.
I think for people, for the neutral who wanted to know a bit about Speedway,
Yeah. And he's got it in his blood as well, obviously.
Pretty...
people of your generation obviously would obviously remember. I know he wasn't really my dad's cup of tea, that Lanning, but people like you, obviously, he's synonymous with some of the great moments of the 70s and 70s world of sport.
He was very much the... who was the famous F1 commentator?
Murray Walker.
He was very much the Murray Walker of the Speedway world.
Yeah.
And like Murray Walker, he had his idiosyncratic
Have we got time in 4
tendencies.
minutes to do
Yeah, there's not too many fixtures, to be fair, so we should be able to rattle our way through it. So,
Yeah,
but
so
the table is up.
We're going to do the Pearson Prediction League.
Yep. Someone hasn't mentioned the fact that they're actually in their highest ever position. So.
Ever, yes.
Well, they're going number 12. Oh, yeah, right up there.
Yeah, and where are you, Chris?
I'm not far behind. I'm only 3 points
well,
behind.
there you go.
It's very close, though, so a long way to go, yes.
Oh, long.
So let's rattle our...
And we should mention somebody that you know is currently at number one.
Yes.
Mr. Brian Buck. Well, he knows.
Along with 6 others, to be fair. But,
yeah. By the fact that his name's Brian and Buck, he's got it at the top of that.
Okay, so let's quickly rattle. As I say, we'll put
3 minutes.
Okay, so let's start off then. Tomorrow, Oxford against Glasgow in the Care Cup quarter final.
And it's you to start.
I'll go for Oxford by 6.
Interesting.
Oxford by 10.
I'm going to say a draw because I just have to do one, and that seems a good one to go for.
Right then, let's go on to tomorrow then. It's Premiership night. Leicester against Ipswich.
Leicester against Ipswich.
That's just me, isn't it?
Yep.
Leicester by 4.
That's going to be an interesting meeting, isn't it?
Yep.
Do you know, Leicester is really looking good at the moment. I'm going to say Leicester by 8.
I'll go Ipswich by 4.
Interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
Next up is Kings Lynn against Birmingham. Can Birmingham build on that excellent result on Monday?
Well, that's going to depend on how Mr. Clint comes in, I think.
Yeah. Knows the track well, of course. So.
Why do I have to get this one?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I'm going to say Birmingham by 2. It would just be great.
I'll go for a draw.
Okay. Where? Okay.
So.
I mean, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll go Birmingham by 4. There we go.
Okay. Interesting.
Okay. Next up, Sheffield against Oxford.
One win, and everybody's predicting us to win.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So who we got?
Sheffield against Oxford.
Sheffield versus Oxford. Okay. Up to you, Mister.
Sheffield by 10.
Sheffield by 6.
For 6. Sheffield by 12.
Okay, let's move on to Friday's action. Glasgow against Workington in the Championship. The Championship campaign getting off to its start on Friday.
Glasgow by 10.
Glasgow by 14.
Workington have had a good start, but I'll go for Glasgow by 6.
Okay.
Okay, next up is Redcar against Scunthorpe, also in the Championship.
Redcar versus Scunthorpe. Scunthorpe's had a good start,
And Redcar haven't.
No. I'm going to say Scunthorpe by 2.
I'll say Scunthorpe by 4.
I'll go Scunthorpe by 6.
Okay, another quarter final of the Knockout Cup. It's Edinburgh against Poole.
And that's up to you.
Poole by 4.
Poole by 10.
This has never happened before. Draw. 2 draws.
Okay. And on the Saturday, we have the second leg of the Cup quarter final, Workington against Redcar.
Up to me, isn't it? Redcar by 6.
Workington by 10.
I'll say Workington by 10 as well.
Got that one wrong.
Okay.
Maybe, you never know.
In the Championship on Saturday, Berwick against Poole.
Berwick against Poole.
Is it Mike?
No, it's up to me. Berwick by 2.
I'll go Berwick by 4.
Berwick by 10. Got to get one of them.
You never know.
Okay. Also on Saturday, it's Plymouth against Oxford in the BSN series.
That's up to you, Matt.
Or Oxford by 8.
Oxford by 10.
Wonder if it's going to be rained off. Oxford by 10.
Okay, then on Bank Holiday Monday, it's Bellevue against Birmingham. And that's obviously a lunchtime start.
You going?
I don't know yet, I may do. Are you going to go? Because obviously
Possibly.
you haven't been to Bellevue yet, so...
No, possibly.
Yeah.
Depends on all sorts of things.
Yeah. Whether you're
and it's
allowed,
up-
basically.
Yeah,
So-
exactly right. Exactly right.
Sorry, I was
Yeah,
reading
it's up to you.
something. Ready, was it?
Bellevue against Birmingham.
I'll go Bellevue by 6.
Yeah, I'm going to say Bellevue by 10, I'm afraid.
I'm going to say Bellevue by 10 as well. I think they're a totally different proposition at the NSS.
Yeah.
And the next one is Ipswich against Kings Lynn.
Ooh, well, Ipswich by 18.
Ipswich by 14.
Ipswich by 12.
Okay. And finally, Oxford against Leicester.
Oxford versus Leicester.
That's up to
Matt.
Oxford by 12.
Oxford by 4.
Could I go for a draw again?
Okay.
No, I said could I didn't say I had. I'm going to say Oxford by 6.
What was that rule about taking first answers only? Yeah.
Okay. I didn't give an answer.
Okay.
There you
So
go.
put the rest. If you carry on posting
Wow.
your predictions on during the week.
Right, we should tell everybody we won't be here next week.
Yeah.
But we will be here the week after. The prediction league will carry on.
Yes, we'll pass the pictures up for next week.
I'll probably miss it and go higher, which is what happened last time. So hey ho, everybody, have a great Speedway weekend. And can I just remind people of this one very important fact tonight? Birmingham won last night. Bye everyone.
Good night.
All opinions here today. Welcome to the Speedway Tavern. Enjoy your stay. Ready?